God, there's lots of noise happening outside right now. They're really just like banging. The moment I start filming, they start banging a pipe. Jesus. Money is one of the things that is a fundamental part of our society. And if you're like me, you like making money. For me, getting into sales specifically, it didn't come to me naturally. It was something I sort of learned down the road was really important to companies, and you could make a lot of money doing it. It took me some time to learn why that's even the case, and it also was sort of a struggle for me to get out of the sort of pigeonholed areas that I was in and make a move into enterprise software sales. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about why sales is so important to startup companies or to large software companies, and how you can make the transition from wherever you are into a software sales role. I've been working in sales for about 5 years now, and I've done it for a couple of startup companies. I've done it for a couple of really large software companies. And so I've gained a lot of experience over the years. And to be perfectly honest, even the $150,000 sort of number I used for this video is pretty conservative for what's possible in software sales. So let's talk about first, how is that even possible? And I'm going to do my best to answer any questions you might have, but if you do end up with questions that I didn't answer, just ask them in the comments. I will be answering all your questions in the comments best I can, and you might even inspire a new video for me to upload. So please go down there, leave a comment if you have any other questions or thoughts. The first thing I want to talk about is the idea of SaaS. What is SaaS sales? So if you're not familiar with SaaS, it is software as a service. And the easiest way to think of it is just like you would purchase, a consumer would purchase Netflix, Spotify, Apple Music. Those are all subscription services that you pay $10 a month for example. In software, we're selling business to business, and instead of a monthly subscription, we're basically selling, in a way, annual subscriptions. That's really the only difference. And the deal sizes, obviously, are larger than $10 a month. They might be like $50,000 a year. Also, sometimes the deals take 2 days to close, and sometimes they take like 300 days to close. And it just depends, but the sales cycle can be a lot longer, especially for the bigger deals. To be honest, $50,000 is sort of a low end for enterprise sales. Often those deals can get up into the multi-$100,000, $1,000,000 deals, much larger if you've been in the game a lot longer and you've got sort of a large clientele built up. That's not what we're talking about today. We're just talking about getting into enterprise sales for the first time. Software companies are thriving off of SaaS sales. And this is where you can start to understand why sales is so important to these companies. When you sell, for example, a $50,000 deal, you may feel as a sales rep like you just closed $50K, but to the company, they look at it differently. And they look at it differently because of two specific metrics. One is called ARR, and the other one is called LTV. ARR stands for annual recurring revenue. And in a SaaS model, like I mentioned, it's sort of like a subscription on an annual basis. So a company sees that $50,000 as potentially $50,000 this year and next year and then the year after that. And it might even grow. So it may be $50,000 this year, $100,000 next year, and $150,000 the year following. That's one reason why software companies make so much money. It's also boosting the influence that sales has within the organization, because when they close a deal for $50,000, they're actually closing much more over time. And that brings us to our second metric, which is LTV, lifetime value. And that's a measure of the value of a customer. So when you close a new deal, on average, how long is that customer going to stay a customer, and how much money are they going to spend over time? And that can actually be measured and averaged out across all customers using a figure called churn. And churn is just customers churning out of the product. It means that they're canceling, essentially. So if you have, for example, a 10% churn, and you closed a $50,000 deal that's just going to stay $50,000, no growth, well, that means every year it has a 10% chance of churning. So within 10 years, on average, that customer will cancel. So instead of bringing in $50,000 this year, you're bringing in $50,000 every year for the next 10 years, which is $500,000 amortized over, I'm not sure if amortized is the right word, but spread over 10 years. That deal was not $50,000, it was kind of $500,000. And if you combine those two things, you can start to imagine how a software sales rep can make so much money doing this. The second thing that I wanted to cover in this video is how to make a transition from wherever you are in your career to software sales, if that's something that you're interested in doing or curious on doing. And I'm going to do that just by telling you how I did it, and hopefully you can apply some of the tactics that I used to whatever your situation may be. Again, if things aren't exactly making sense, leave a comment down below and I will answer your specific question. So for me, I actually started in tech support. And for those who have been in tech support or for those who haven't, it's a field that can feel very pigeonholed. Once you're in tech support, it's really hard to move out. I've seen a lot of people want to move out of tech support into development or into other departments. And once you're in tech support, you're kind of, it can feel like you're stuck, but you're not. So I started in tech support, and then I ended up moving into development and worked in software development for a number of years. Now, neither of those two experiences have any direct sales experience. One's developing, it's heavily internal to the company, and the other one has nothing to do with bringing money, and technically it's a cost center for the company because you're providing support, which means it's after the sale, and only when things go wrong is when you're on the phone. So what I did was I took both of those roles and I focused on the selling aspects of each role, and I combined them into my resume to present a sales experience. And let me explain what that actually means. On the tech support side, I talked about the high-profile customers that I had built relationships with. So in my field, I really was working with large brands within my industry, and I had built multi-year relationships with these different executives. So although I wasn't selling to them per se, at least like not closing deals, I was building relationships with high-level executives at name brand companies that you would know. And I used that. I explained I have these relationships in place. And although I wasn't bringing in revenue, I just focused on those relationships. On the development side, I focused on revenue. And the way I did that was I talked about how building products and bringing them to market unblocked deals. And I actually added those up. So I took, for example, a product that I brought to market, and I calculated the revenue that when that product got brought to market based on letters of intent or customers who had agreed to purchase or purchased soon after, let's say within the first 6 months of the product being released, I attributed to my work. So essentially I said, I helped bring in, because even though I wasn't part of the sales cycle itself, I did help bring in revenue by bringing a product to the market that did address a problem for a customer and contributing to that product being sold. And in software sales, a lot of times it can be just a feature or a functionality that's holding a group of customers back. Like they need to have a specific integration before they'll purchase. So that was an easy way for me to measure how I contributed to sales. Those are just two examples. Obviously, you have to make this very specific to the work that you've done, but think about the work that you're doing right now and what are either the sales and relationships side that you can focus on, or even if it's not a selling job, what revenue can you attribute to your work? Then you have to start applying for sales jobs. And just to give you an idea of what that can look like, for me at least, I applied for 5 jobs a day for about 6 months straight. And I got a ton of rejection, a ton of no's. And I just want to take a moment to remind you that you only need one yes, which is to say it does not matter how many no's or ignores, I will say, people not replying, how many of those it takes to get you to your one yes. It's irrelevant. Once you get the yes, you're done. So the way to get to that yes is every time someone replies and says no, hey hon, 60 seconds of FaceTiming back. The way to get from the no's all the way to that yes eventually is by talking to the people who tell you no. And you specifically have to ask, and I know it's hurtful to get all these rejection emails, it sucks. Or if you go through screenings and then the person emails you later and says, hey, look, sorry, we have a better fit. It sucks. It does not feel good, and it feels like you will never get there. I promise you, you can get there. You need to talk to those people, and you need to say, what was I missing? What specific thing, be specific, what specific thing was I missing that you were looking for? And then you take that information, some people will tell you, and you take that information, you need to circle it back and put it in your resume, something that addresses the thing that was missing. And you do that enough times and you end up with a resume that checks all the boxes. Eventually you will start getting more screenings, you'll start getting more second or on-site interviews, and eventually you will get an offer. So that is how you break into software sales. Subscribe and like the video. And we gotta say hi to Coons. Come here. So my first selling gig actually was selling leather jackets in a mall store. Believe it or not, I was 16, and it really helped me break out of my shell. So I really would recommend sales for anyone, even if you don't feel like it's for you. You never know, it might surprise you.